Great school.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everybody. Back with the Tibetan Tradition of Mental Development, Chapter 11. And if you'll remember, this Chapter 11 is about the three scopes, the capacity, you might say. What's one attempting to do? So the smaller scope is one who is practicing for the next lifetime. Note that you're already giving up this 100% obsession with this lifetime. In fact, the efforts of this lifetime become causes for the next lifetime. So you're always sort of thinking beyond what the ordinary person, the worldly being, is thinking. Then the medium scope is one for whom wants to be done with suffering altogether. Not looking for a future rebirth, but just wanting to be done with the suffering in a fundamental, kind of comprehensive way. But now he's talking about the third scope, which is seeking to liberate all beings and lead them to Buddhahood. And to do that, we have to become Buddhas ourselves. So this is chapter 3, chapter 11, rather. And if you notice, it's the longest chapter in the book. So what does that tell us? He's in this discussion of bodhicitta. We've gone through 3 or 4 pages on bodhicitta. And so we're picking up, just continuing with that. Bodhicitta, bodhi, the awakening, citta, the mind of awakening, also known as the cause of Buddhahood. All right, I'm on the top of page 92. Speaking about a mother's love, this method and this insight that all beings have been our mothers. If we can sort of, generate the emotion and the conviction, and kind of like the ironclad, even your mother is goofing up really bad, she's still your mother. So it's different than a stranger doing it. We're using our natural kind of attachment to sort of go beyond just attachment only to ours. All right. So all the teachings you have received should be used for the development of bodhicitta. The most important scripture is, and I can't read it in Tibetan, but it's the oral tradition of Maitreya Buddha to Asanga, which deals with the 6 causes and the fruit of bodhicitta. If you have not developed the attitude of holding all beings as your mothers, remembering the kindness of mothers is not effective in developing bodhicitta. The kindness of mothers can be seen even among animals. For example, a mother bird stays with her young even if danger approaches, and she's willing to give her life for their protection. So think of that, remembering the kindness of mothers. If you've not developed the attitude of holding all beings as your mothers, if you can do that, even intellectually, even just conceptually, start to train yourself in considering every single being you come across, every insect, every bird, as having been your mother. Already, it puts a chink in that seemingly unviolated mental armor that we put around ourselves. Instead, you see some commonality with the other person, even though it's just projected and pretend, for starters. But with everything, with habit, meditation is growing accustomed to. As you grow accustomed to that, you're actually training the mind, this most slippery of things. Your mother carried you and bore you, raised you, made your present existence possible. So never hold a grudge for the few unkind things she may have done to you. Doing something fine, you may think, I have done this, feeling very independent. But whatever has been accomplished has resulted from your mother's kindness. As an infant, you were like an earthworm, but your mother had great joy in you and lovingly cared for you. You could not speak, but your mother talked and laughed with you continually, never leaving you alone, unprotected. Your mother slept irregularly and lightly when you were young, always thinking of your welfare. When you were older, she taught you to walk, speak, eat, and so forth. And later on, she was concerned with your education, growth, occupation, and marriage. Nearly all mothers are like this. A mother dog vomits up food for her pups. A mother bird constantly fetches worms for her chicks. But when the young are grown, they forget their mother. If you do likewise, you will be no different from animals. A mother's love and care arises naturally, effortlessly. Realizing your mother's love, turn to your father and see that his love is the same, the only difference being that he's not your mother in this life. The attainment of enlightenment is due to the kindness of others, and it is impossible without it. Following the Prajnaparamita, the Paramita Yana, or the path of the Bodhisattva, requires one's own effort, but also the help of other beings. Without others, you could not practice the 10 virtuous acts, attain a fully endowed body, or meditate on love and mercy. So think about that. You can't practice love. If love and compassion are the road to Buddhahood, you need other beings to do that. Not to mention that we need other beings just simply to survive. You know, I take a bite of my cornflakes in the morning. Think of the number of beings that were involved in the production of that. And think of all their parents that were necessary to give birth to them and raise them. It's just this unbelievable tsunami of love and compassion. Not only is there motherly kindness, but also the kindness of living beings towards each other. All superficial pleasures, such as the happiness of receiving praise, are due to the kindness of others, such as when eating just a handful of rice, consider the difficulties undergone by others to make this possible. Sowing the seed, watering, fertilizing, harvesting, packing and sending the rice, and finally selling it. All the people involved thus worked for the benefit of others. Shantideva wrote that spiritual attainment is half due to the kindness of all sentient beings and half due to the gurus and the Buddhas. In Tibet, there was a famous bandit who made a practice of raiding caravans. Once, while so engaged, he accidentally struck a mare with his sword, and her foal emerged from her womb. Even as she was dying, she tried to get up and lick her foal dry. Seeing this, the bandit quit robbing and followed the Dharma. One should strive to realize such love. The next point of contemplation towards the development of bodhicitta is called repaying kindness, rinzo. After realizing that all sentient beings are suffering due to the 3 poisons, it is shameful if one does nothing to help them. The present situation is like seeing one's blind mother about to walk off a cliff and doing nothing to save her. Living beings do not know what actions are virtuous and which are non-virtuous, and are ignorant of the results. Every moment they walk closer to death and rebirth in the lower realms. It is our duty to help them, guiding them on the path to liberation from suffering. To the charge that his wearing such scanty clothes was crazy, Milarepa replied that those who are wandering endlessly in samsara are the truly deluded ones. Although even his enemies pitied his extreme poverty, the Buddhas rejoiced in his wonderful attainments. Milarepa attained bodhicitta within 11 months. And when he told Marpa of his experiences, his guru was delighted and said, "You have lived up to my great expectations of you." There are many ways of repaying kindness. Giving material assistance, such as food to beggars and help to those in need, is beneficial. But this is not the best means. To guide and liberate all beings from suffering is the true repayment of kindness. For although beings have experienced all types of birth and living situations, they still wander in samsara. Thus, it is necessary to first attain enlightenment ourselves and then lead others to it. The next stage of this meditation, and this is the meditation of Maitreya that he's talking about, these 6 causes. So you think of all beings as being your mothers, and then you think of the kindness of those beings, and the fact that in the immensity of infinity, all have been your mothers. So therefore, you have that kind of gratitude towards all of them. The next stage of this meditation is immaculate love for all living beings. If one has meditated extensively on the 3 preceding points, further meditation here is not necessary, for this love arises naturally. Having realized this great love, all beings, even worms and insects, are pleasing, for one knows that all have been of aid in attaining that state. Relate the contemplations of the person of small scope to this meditation. If, having met with the opportunity of developing bodhicitta, you were to die before taking advantage of it, it would be a great misfortune. All beings, including animals, appreciate love and mercy. One night when Nagarjuna was reciting a text, a pigeon listened to him all night long. In its next life, it was born as his chief disciple and was able to recite the entire text. There are many such examples. When a person turns his mind to Dharma, it is the start of his happiness. Love arises through wishing that others may always have happiness. And compassion, nyingje, arises from the wish to raise others from their present state of suffering. So think of that. Love is the wish for others to experience happiness. Compassion is the wish to remove other beings from the source of suffering. So it's deeper, you might say, more fundamental. If we're talking about the 4 immeasurable mind states, of course, love is succeeded by compassion. Develop love first, and compassion will naturally follow. For the more one likes someone, the less one can endure their suffering. For beginners, just a moment of meditation on love is worth vastly more than hours spent in other practices. If one is filled with love, one will be loved by others. This is an example of the working of the law of cause and effect. Meditation on compassion for just a few hours lays a great foundation for further understanding and spiritual attainment. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are products of compassion. In a treatise, one sage paid homage to compassion, saying that in doing so, he was paying homage to all the Buddhas, for it is the cause of their attainment. He drew the analogy of a farmer who first needs seed, then heat, then moisture to reap a bountiful harvest. Likewise, compassion first as a motivator, then as a source of perseverance, inspiration, and encouragement, is needed in order to attain the full fruit of Buddhahood. It is also due to their compassion that the Buddhas go on teaching until all beings are enlightened. The strength of one's bodhicitta corresponds to the power of one's compassion. There is a Jataka tale. These are the accounts of the previous lives of the Buddha. Half of them are the Buddha as a human being. The other half is the Buddha as an animal. There is a Jataka tale, an account of 3 brothers who, while walking in a forest, came upon a starving tigress about to devour her cubs. The youngest brother felt such great compassion that he lay down in front of her and offered his own flesh. He was later to become Shakyamuni Buddha, and his 2 brothers were incarnations of Maitreya and Manjushri. The only suitable motivation for practicing Tantra is compassion for all sentient beings, and the corresponding wish to attain enlightenment as soon as possible in order to guide them from their suffering. If a child were to fall into a fire, it would take a very strong person to jump into the fire herself to save him. Raichung, the disciple of Milarepa, was for a time lax in his spiritual practice, so Milarepa took him many times to a place where animals were butchered. After that, his practice was intense. This is an effective method which may be used today. If a country has skilled and efficient representation in the United Nations, its inhabitants may be at ease and without worry. One is likewise a representative as one approaches enlightenment. Other beings depend on such a one, for we have more karmic ties with those now living than with the Buddhas of the past. It often happens that a disciple of a guru can establish greater communication with a fellow disciple than can the guru himself. Only by finding the guru with whom one has close karmic ties can one achieve rapid progress. So that's very interesting, isn't it? Often happens that the disciple of a guru can establish greater communication with a fellow disciple than can the guru himself. And of course, this works for all of us, speaking amongst ourselves. You know, the Tibetans have their own kind of obstacles in dealing with Americans. You know, just the lack of a common cultural conditioning and education. Seek any circumstance which helps to develop compassion. While observing animals being butchered, reflect that goats and sheep are surviving simply to be killed later. Then expand your awareness and clearly realize that there are many people now who are not using the great opportunity of human existence. This is the one path leading to enlightenment. There is no way except with compassion. Exert all efforts toward the attainment of the person of great scope and let compassion grow until it becomes great compassion. Nyingje Chenpo in Tibetan. In order to develop bodhicitta, one needs first to develop equanimity towards all beings. Otherwise, the further stages of this meditation are like sowing seed in uneven ground. When meditate, concentrate primarily on one point. Then at the end of the meditation, review briefly the rest of the points. So a word here needs to develop equanimity for all beings. This is how they teach. Again, the four immeasurables: love, compassion, this kind of spontaneous joy, shared joy in the virtues of the great bodhisattvas and others, and then equanimity, the great impartiality. Even though that's the highest of these four states, in teaching and practice, we take it down and begin there. Because without the equanimity, there's, of course, our habit of just sort of compassion for what we like. We're filtering this mind of compassion through this self-grasping. And of course, that's not what it's about. So they take the skillful means of getting just a little bit, even if it's just conceptual, of the great equanimity and impartiality. Just know that. And then when you practice, you can practice that. And therefore, every time you slip up, you know, you'll recognize it. This impartiality is a great mirror. The sixth stage of this meditation, this is Maitreya's way to bodhicitta, is the pure wish. Whereas during the foregoing stages, concentration was placed on love and compassion, along with the wish for the happiness of others. Now one comes to the intention to act for their welfare. The previous stages were like bargaining for something, and here is the actual buying. The meditator realizes he must attain enlightenment, and that this can only come through his own efforts. He thus takes the responsibility of the liberation of all sentient beings onto his own shoulders. What a significant step. All this talk, all the teachings we've had, loving kindness and compassion, thinking about our mothers, what we owe them, the gratitude, the love that comes up, then developing the compassion, practicing the equanimity, and then all of a sudden what's left? To actually act, to do. It's said in the, the relative bodhicitta, there's the aspirational bodhicitta, which of course is the wish to liberate all beings, take all beings to enlightenment. And then there's the engaging relative bodhicitta, which is taking one step towards the goal. This is the practice of the six perfections. Every time we're filling the bowls on the altar, that's what we're doing. At this stage, one reviews what powers or qualification one now has to lead others from their suffering, and recognizing that oneself is not capable, searches through all beings for another who does have that ability. Finding that no one in samsara is able to know the needs of each type of person or each individual, that only the Buddhas have this power, one realizes the necessity of attaining this state. When one has a natural, spontaneous longing to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, bodhicitta has been attained, and one has become a Mahayanist. All right. So when one has a natural, spontaneous longing to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, bodhicitta, Janchub Ki Sem Rinpoche, has been attained, and one has become a Mahayanist. The Bodhisattva Maitreya has cultivated the wish to become a universal teacher, destined to enter the world during an era when the lifespan is long and people are happy, and most bodhisattvas think there will be little chance for propagating the Dharma. The most important scriptures on bodhicitta. Yeah, Maitreya. So, especially in the Geluk, you sometimes see people, you might call it the cult. I mean, cult, meaning cultivation, not not blind belief, but the cult of Maitreya. Lama Govinda's teacher would go around building statues of Maitreya, the next Buddha to be. The Bodhisattva Maitreya has cultivated the wish to become a universal teacher destined to enter the world during an era when the lifespan is long, people are happy, and most bodhisattvas think there will be little chance for propagating the Dharma. So many different characteristics, so many types of existences and times. And now he lists the most important scriptures on bodhicitta. One, it's a collection of 6 sutras. I don't recognize it. Then one of the 6 main works of Nagarjuna, Rinchen Chenpa. I can't read it in Tibetan with all those silent consonants. All right, collection of 6 sutras is the first one. Don't know the names. Second is one of the 6 main works of Nagarjuna. Third is the Bodhisattva Charyavatara by Shantideva, of course. And fourth, a supplement to the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, which should be studied with it. That's Shantideva's other work, which I don't think has been translated into English. Now, the Geshe continues, one must have at least some development of bodhicitta before practicing Tantra, for without this, even the highest tantric practice is a waste of time. Tsongkhapa likened bodhicitta to the threshold of a house. If one stands on the threshold of bodhicitta, it's the same as entering the Mahayana way of life. But if bodhicitta is lacking, one stands on the outside. Far more than reading Mahayana scriptures, it's important for one to be a Mahayanist oneself. When Atisha first came to Tibet, many people requested initiations, but he replied, without bodhicitta, what good are they? There are beings in the 3 lower realms who have practiced high tantra, but without bodhicitta. No matter how profound one's meditation may be, without bodhicitta, full enlightenment remains beyond one's reach. But if the disciple has developed bodhicitta, initiations become very effective. One should tame the mind and develop bodhicitta, a practice which can be done even during sleep. One famous guru proclaimed, if one professes how high his practice is, but lacks bodhicitta, plaster his mouth with human excrement. One who has attained bodhicitta, even though they may be an animal, which is possible under certain circumstances, is called a prince of the Buddha. This development is the highest Dharma practice and is sometimes known as the diamond, for even a slight amount is precious. Developing spontaneous love and compassion is a prime means of eliminating one's kleshas and an important preliminary practice for Tantra. Asanga meditated upon Maitreya for 12 years, seeking a vision of him, but without success. He then left his cave, and while walking along a road, saw a wounded dog covered with worms. Great compassion arose in him, and while seeking to relieve the dog of its misery without harming the worms, he bent down to remove them with his tongue. At that moment, the moment he touched the worm with his tongue, Maitreya appeared before him. Recognizing that the small and middle scope contemplations are mere branches, and the understanding of bodhicitta the main trunk of Dharma practice, use all contemplations to aid this understanding. Even if one has no other positive qualities, after developing only a little bodhicitta, one becomes an object of refuge and reverence. Does not come in a short time, but requires much effort, and one must be willing to undergo any hardship in order to attain it. If even a layperson has developed bodhicitta, he is worthy of the reverence of bodhisattvas. After its attainment, all other goals are achieved naturally without great effort. Just as meat lying in the sun naturally attacks flies, so bodhicitta is naturally sensed by others. Thinking ahead about the advantages of having attained bodhicitta leads to the motivation to develop it. The Buddha said that just as bowing to the new moon is automatically bowing to the full moon, because the new moon contains all the phases within it, so respecting one who has attained bodhicitta is honoring the Buddha. This is because bodhicitta is the immediate cause of full enlightenment. One must take very good care of one's cultivation of bodhicitta, which is like a young fruit tree. In order to attain Buddhahood, one needs a full collection of physical and mental merit, and bodhicitta is a prime means for collecting these two. Merit must be increased until its fulfillment and perfection. Bodhicitta eliminates mental and physical obstacles, and its cultivation is thus the best initial practice. Like a chemical that transforms all metal into gold, it turns the impurities of the human body into the three bodies of the Buddha. It is because people have not developed bodhicitta that they still have an impure human form. The rate of this development depends upon one's own effort. With bodhicitta, one's collection of merit is always increasing, but without it, such increase is uncertain. There are three stages of collecting merit. The first beginning during the path of collection, soklam. The second during the path of insight. And the third at the eighth great bodhisattva level, eighth bodhisattva level. All right, so that's during the path of accumulation, three stages of collecting merit. The path of accumulation, then the second path, as you know, is the path of application. So there's not necessarily apparently great collection of bodhicitta going. The first path of the five paths, the first path, the accumulation, the accumulation of merit. That's entirely what's going on. It's purification and accumulation. The object of the second main path is using some of that merit to apply. So now we're applying into this insight into the nature of the mind. And then the third is the path of insight. And this too, there's collection of merit here. Because with insight into the nature of reality, there's a great accumulation of merit. And the third is at the eighth bodhisattva level, which is on the path of meditation. Giving a handful of rice with the motivation of bodhicitta to one person has more merit than feeding millions without it. So this is remarkable, this ability to discriminate. This kind of violates our kind of worldly ideas, the great ideas of egalitarianism that we have in our modern worldly way. We don't see the transcendent, so we're limited in being able to make proper distinctions. So in other words, to help someone who has bodhicitta is helping more beings than just feeding a million people, because there's a million people just going to die anyway. And some of them are doing very negative things. It's not that you don't have compassion for them, but if you're limited, what can you do? It shows you the incredible, the inconceivable power of bodhicitta. Any virtuous action done with bodhicitta motivation has the degree of merit corresponding to the number of beings one seeks to benefit. There is great merit in wishing to relieve one person from suffering, so much more for all beings. So in other words, you can be giving a crumb of rice to a sparrow, just one little being. But if your motivation is that you're doing this for the benefit of all, it's much more powerful. When in pain, consider the suffering of all sentient beings and develop the wish to carry this burden in order to deliver them from misery. This will lead to the end of your own sufferings. Whatever meritorious actions one performs, such as meditation, Bodhicitta should be the motivation, should be cultivated with sincerity, not merely as a ceremony, for it is as important an important stage of the practice. Before stealing, one has a motivation to steal. Likewise, one should make one's motivation or reason for doing any virtuous act bodhicitta. When beginning meditation, it is a mistake to think, I wish I could attain freedom, enlightenment, and so forth. Guard the mind. All humans make a great mistake in that they are very concerned about external enemies, which can only harm them in this life. Yet they cherish their internal enemies, primarily self-grasping and self-cherishing, which harms them for countless lives. One should be less concerned with one's environment and more concerned with the motivation to deliver all beings from suffering. To attempt to develop bodhicitta for the sake of one's own progress is still very selfish. Turns it also upside down. Shantideva wrote that the development of bodhicitta destroys mental and physical obstacles like the world-destroying fire at the end of the world. People are eager to achieve great attainments with the least effort, and the best means for this are bodhicitta and understanding emptiness. One must not even entertain the idea that Buddhahood may be attained without bodhicitta. Bodhicitta should always accompany one like one's own shadow. After developing bodhicitta, one experiences no fear during the bardo or even in the lower realms. One goes with confidence. Performing the tantric preliminary practices with bodhicitta motivation for just one day is worth far more than doing them for 100 years without bodhicitta. So the tantric preliminary practices, that's the nundro, 4 thoughts that turn the mind to dharma, and then the purification of vajrasattva, the accumulation of merit of the mandala, the guru yoga, and developing great compassion. While working for the benefit of others, one need devote no effort to the fulfillment of one's own wishes, for this comes naturally. Developing bodhicitta is a prime means for bringing others to enlightenment. Some people recite mantras for 60 years in order to attain powers for selfish reasons, but with no success. On the other hand, there is no level of attainment that cannot be reached if one's practice is joined with bodhicitta. With it, one is able to attain tantric powers with no external physical aids. In the last chapter of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 8,000 verses, there is the account of the Bodhisattva Sadaprarudita and his great bodhicitta, his self-sacrificing devotions to his guru, Dharmogata, and the powers he attained. One needs constantly to receive fresh inspiration for one's spiritual practice, and this sutra may be of great help. All right, so the Perfection of Wisdom, 8,000 verses. I'm trying to think of his Sanskrit name. Ashta. The abbreviation Kanzi has is Ashta. Ashta maybe 8, I'm not sure. For 6 years, Milarepa stayed with Marpa, and instead of receiving teachings, endured many hardships. He later said, to think that I was a Buddha in my past life is a great insult to Tantra. Buddhahood is not something of the past, but is always something that is, but rather is always with you, like your shadow. You simply do not realize it. With great effort and skillful guidance, enlightenment may be attained in this lifetime. The attainment of bodhicitta itself may confer great powers. One of the Ganden Triptas, a succession of lamas who act as representatives for Je Tsongkhapa. So the Ganden Tripas are the heads of the Geluk. Dalai Lama is second. It's often kind of throws off people's assumptions, you know. And Ganden is Tibetan for Tushita, where the Deva realm from which Buddha was born came as a human being. There were once 3 meditators in Tibet. Let's see. Yeah, sorry. One of the Ganden Tripas turned back a flood outside Lhasa wholly by the power of his bodhicitta. With bodhicitta, one is protected and able to achieve any goal with no obstacles. There were once three meditators in Tibet, all of them seeking Buddhahood in this life. One had developed bodhicitta, and the earth spirits could give him nothing. To the second, they gave a pen, and he became a great poet. And to the third, they gave a bag of medicine, and he became a skilled doctor. Only the one with bodhicitta was left with an unobstructed path to enlightenment. That all your efforts be directed here, for bodhicitta must be attained while still on the first of the five paths towards enlightenment. So this is the great wonder of it, the great benefit and really blessing for us. You know, people sometimes their lack of, yeah, it's coming off. I don't know what's going on. It's backwards. Maybe I'm knocking it off. At any rate, we have to accumulate bodhicitta in this first path of accumulation. And we're all there. It's just like right there for us. We don't have to bemoan where we are not at, so to speak. It's right there. Only mental merit is gained through contemplation on shunyata and emptiness. But bodhicitta balances this with physical merit. Possibility of attaining Buddhahood in this life depends on one's development of bodhicitta, and that is why Buddhist Tantra is unique. Simply hearing about bodhicitta leaves a great impression in one's stream of consciousness, much more so if one actually develops it. Make bodhicitta the framework of your practice. Shantideva wrote, if you stir milk, its essence, butter, appears. Likewise, if you stir all the teachings, the development of bodhicitta appears. Source of happiness on all levels, from arhatship down, is the direct and indirect teachings of the Buddha. And this source is compassion. All the Buddhas have first been bodhisattvas, and this will be the way of all future Buddhas. Just before his death, Atisha said, those people in the future should not regret not meeting me. My essence is the practice of bodhicitta, and when one is developing this, it is the same as meeting me. Begin every morning with contemplation and equanimity, and follow this with the other steps towards bodhicitta. Become well acquainted with them. These steps are the practice found to be most effective by Atisha. Another method for attaining bodhicitta is given by Manjushri in the words of Shantideva. Its essence is the cherishing of others before oneself. At first, very few people received this oral tradition, and they were required to meditate on it 3 times each day. One reason this teaching was kept relatively secret was that it should be taught only to those of high intelligence and broad mental scope. It is very difficult and is thus only given to those with a great desire to receive such a special teaching. There are different methods of developing bodhicitta. The previously explained 6 steps form the common path, and this latter method of Manjushri, meaning to treat with equanimity oneself and others, is the more exclusive and effective. So this is Tonglen, the exchanging of self and others. But I think we'll stop there, the explanation of that next time, having gone through Maitreya's path, 6 causes this time. Any questions, any discussion, anything? He's asking about the 3 meditators in bodhicitta wanting to come to Buddhahood. One got nothing, and so it had an unobstructed path. Another one got a pen, became a great writer, and the third one, a bag of medicine, became a great physician. So the one without a pen became the Buddha. The one with nothing, he became a Buddha. The one with a pen became, I can't remember to say Manjushri, not sure. And the one with the bag of medicine, let's check that.
leading to my other questions about that emptiness is the most mind-boggling thing in Buddhism, I think.
Oh, I didn't say I'm remembering that wrong. Yeah. No, I remember it right with the pen and the bag of medicine. Didn't say who they became in the next lifetime.
The one that got nothing was the one that
The highest attainment. Yeah. Yeah.
that's why emptiness is mind-boggling.
Yeah, right. Right. It is. It is. 218. See if I have something here for a dedication. No, but what I turned to were the four measurables, so that seems kind of auspicious. We dedicate the merit from this evening with each and every sentient being. May we practice the recognition of all beings as having been our mother in a previous lifetime, and practicing the six causes of Maitreya Bodhisattvas, steps to bodhicitta, develop bodhicitta, and may our love be for all sentient beings in every single thing we do, and may the benefit of this accrue to them. Svaha. Okay. Okay, guys. Summertime.